Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this second day of our international workshop on ecohydrogeology. Today it's my distinct pleasure to introduce today's WaterTalk speaker, Professor Yanxin Wang. So Professor Wang is at the China University of Geosciences. He's the professor of hydrogeology and environmental engineering at CUG. Professor Wang is an academician of the Chinese Academy of Sciences. He's also a fellow of the International Association of Geochemistry. So Professor Wang's research focuses on groundwater contamination, drinking water safety, and the hydrobiogeochemical processes that control naturally occurring contaminants such as arsenic, fluoride, and iodine in aquifer systems. And so over the past 3 decades, his interdisciplinary research has advanced our understanding of groundwater systems and supported the development of practical, cost-effective solutions for protecting water resources. Through national and international collaborations, his group integrates approaches from hydrogeochemistry, groundwater hydraulics, sedimentology, geostatistics, isotope geochemistry, ecohydrology, and geomicrobiology to investigate the mechanisms governing the mobilization and immobilization of geogenic contaminants and improve the safety of drinking water supplies. Professor Wang's contributions have been recognized by numerous national and international honors. He serves on the editorial boards of several leading scientific journals, including the Annual Review of Environment and Resources, the National Science Review. He is also the chief editor of the Journal of Earth Sciences. Professor Wang has a long-standing connection to the University of Waterloo. Having been a visiting professor here in 1998-1999, he also received an honorary doctorate of science degree from the university in 2023. As you can see here, today's Professor Wang will present a talk on the hydrobiogeochemistry and health risk of geogenic contaminants in groundwater systems. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to Professor Wang.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much, Philip, for your kind introduction. It's my great honor and pleasure to talk about the hydrobiogeochemistry and health risks of geogenic contaminants in groundwater systems. First of all, I would like to give a definition of the so-called GCGS, geogenic contaminated groundwaters. The so-called geogenic contaminated groundwaters refer to those with abnormally high concentrations of hazardous substances such as arsenic, fluoride, iodine, chromium, uranium, phosphorus, ammonia, etc., even including pathogens, natural pathogens, that originate from the host rocks and aquifer matrices and have been enriched in groundwater under complex hydrogeological and geochemical conditions. As a matter of fact, geogenic contaminated groundwaters has become a global health concern for millions of people. On the upper left of this slide, I show you the some of the recent publications of my group. We show this in this diagram the major locations of the high arsenic, fluoride, and iodine groundwaters across the world. With the yellow patches, we show the arid and semi-arid regions of the world. You can see the geogenic contaminated groundwaters match very well with these arid, semi-arid regions. In other words, the problem of water shortage and the waterborne endemic diseases overlap with each other. And for most part of these arid and semi-arid regions, the peoples are poor. So these three problems of water shortage, poverty, and waterborne endemic diseases overlap, which make a serious threat to the sustainable development of the world. On the right hand of this plot, I show you the occurrence of high arsenic, fluoride, and iodine groundwaters in China. As you can see, most of these waters are distributed in the northern part of China, upper part of China. So, and it is in this area, in this region, we have the arid and semi-arid regions where we have serious problems of water shortage. And as a matter of fact, also, geogenic contaminated groundwaters affect millions of health of millions of people across the world, especially in China. On the right lower part of this diagram, you see the endemic arsenic poisoning disease on the skin. There's the patient skin cancer already, and also the fluorosis, and also due to the insufficient intake of iodine, the problem of goiter. But as on the other hand, if you have excessive intake of iodine, that will also cause serious problems of thyroid problems, disease. A very brief introduction about the hydrogeochemistry of arsenic, fluoride, and iodine. Arsenic is a redox-sensitive element. It has a complex speciation and widely occurs in sulfide minerals in the lithosphere. And iron oxyhydroxide have been found to be a strong sorbent for arsenic. And arsenic can be released into the groundwater due to the reductive dissolution of iron oxyhydroxide in aquifers. And phosphate and bicarbonate are competitive sorbents for arsenic. On the right upper part of this diagram, you can see the species of arsenic. Here we only show the inorganic species, arsenate and arsenite. Arsenite is more toxic than arsenic. And the fluoride also widely occurs in minerals and rocks. And in the past, I always regard fluoride as a boring element because it's not redox sensitive, and also fluoride has a clear solubility control with fluoride, calcium fluoride solubility control. On the upper right part of this diagram, you can see the red line is the KSP curve of the fluoride. All the water samples if you plot on this diagram, most of them will be plotted below the this curve. That, in other words, is a solubility control. But desorption, competitive sorption, and also especially evaporative enrichment have been found to be extremely important for the enrichment of fluoride in groundwaters. In other words, in arid and semi-arid regions, high fluoride groundwaters widely develops because of this evaporative enrichment effect. Iodine is also a redox sensitive element. It's a very interesting element, and the studies, geochemical studies on iodine have been focused on radionuclide because of the radioactive waste disposal. But with the effort of my group, we spend a lot of time and effort to study the naturally occurring high iodine groundwaters. That is geogenic iodine enriched groundwaters in the groundwater systems. And for iodine, ocean acts as a primary reservoir, but it can be transported due to the evaporation processes from the ocean to the inland regions. And organic abundant marine and lacustrine sediments are major natural sources for iodine in groundwater systems. My group spent more than 30 years to study the occurrence and the genesis of geogenic contaminated groundwaters in China in collaboration with colleagues from around the world, including Professor Philip Van Kapellen at the University of Waterloo. Thank you very much, Philip, for your great help and friendship in the past more than 10 years. We started the effort from 1995 I tried to use some materials to remove fluoride from groundwaters. And 3 years later, I spent 1 year in University of Waterloo in the lab of Eric Riordan. I used geomaterials to remove arsenic from groundwaters. I personally did a lot of experiments in the lab at the University of Waterloo. Then we continued our effort back after my visit from University of Waterloo. We studied across China the high arsenic, fluoride, iodine, and ammonia, phosphorus, all these geogenic contaminated groundwaters in Yellow River catchment, and also the Yang River basins, and also in Peru River delta regions in the south of China, and even the geothermal fluids. We studied the arsenic biogeochemistry in hot springs in Tibet and Yunnan. The objective, the ultimate objective is to ensure safe water supply to our people. Today I will talk about my talk will focus on 3 aspects. The first part is about geological control of on the occurrence of geogenic contaminated groundwaters. The second will be the main part of my talk, that is the hydrobiogeochemistry of these waters. Then I will very briefly summarize the recent advances of our work on health risk predictions of geogenic contaminated groundwaters. And finally, I'll give some perspectives for the future studies in this area. As we all know, the spatial distribution of geogenic contaminants in groundwater is controlled by the groundwater system evolution. The groundwater system evolution are affected by aquifer matrix properties and evolution, and also the hydrodynamic conditions, and also hydrobiogeochemical conditions. All these are under control of geological conditions. So I always say, as I discussed with John Cherry, geology determines everything in groundwater systems. I always think so. And as a matter of fact, it is true. But geological control is also affected by other external drivers of the groundwater systems, that is climate change and human activities. So for this part, I will talk about 3 major recent advances of our work. The first part is sedimentological control on arsenic enrichment in aquifer systems. The right diagram is a very interesting finding of our work. I was invited to write a review paper for Earth Science Review in the year 2018. I asked one of my students to plot the largest ice sheet, the so-called last glaciation maximum, the so-called ice sheet in China, in Asia, on this plot. Then that is shown by the blue patch, and we plotted the major areas of geogenic contaminant, mostly arsenic, geogenic arsenic contaminated aquifers. It was quite interesting to find all these aquifers occur around the ice sheet. In other words, maybe there's some link between the last glaciation maximum and the occurrence or the genesis of high arsenic groundwaters in this area. Early findings by Scott Fandolf from Stanford University showed that the arsenic in South Asia delta regions were transported from, the arsenic was transported from Himalaya mountains by weathering process downstream to the delta regions in South Asia, and there is a positive correlation between the iron in the sediment and the arsenic in the sediment. In other words, the adsorbed iron arsenic on iron oxide hydroxide will be is reductively dissolved when buried in the downstream aquifers, and that will release arsenic from the surface of the iron oxide hydroxide. But that story does not explain the spatial occurrence in this whole region, in Asia, in different Asian countries. So we selected the Central Yangtze River basins as our case study areas. We first carried out hydrogeochemical survey of this region. On the left, you can see the occurrence of high arsenic groundwaters in this Central Yangtze River basins. By the way, I will tell you this is the area with abundant lakes. Philip visited several times with us to this region, and the red dots on the left plot correspond one borehole of groundwater sample. The bigger the dot, the higher the concentration of the arsenic in the groundwater. And we also measured the vertical occurrence. We measured the vertical concentration profile in this region. You can see on the right lower part of this diagram, high arsenic. The red dots on the red diagram on the right left red lower part. The arsenic high arsenic groundwaters occurs mostly at the depths shallower than 50 meters. And correspondingly, we have high iron, manganese, and ammonia in these semi-aquifer systems. Then we will ask ourselves a question: does the paleoclimate change and the quaternary deposition systems evolution control the source and distribution of arsenic in this region? And we carried out geochronological measurement of the sediments, and we found out after last glaciation maximum, which is 20,000 years ago. After that LGM, there is a quick deposition rate in the aquifer systems. That is, in other words, after ending of the LGM, the sea level rose up, and there was a quick response of the river, Yangtze River, with upstream very quick and large scale upstream deposition of the sediments. With that, we have a huge accumulation of late Pleistocene and Holocene sediments in the aquifer systems. Then we measured the chemical index of alteration values for these sediments. We can see that this CIA index shows there is a strong weathering, and also we measured the speciation of iron species in the sediments. We found out before the LGM, the major species of iron in the sediment are sulfide. Then after the last glaciation, the major species in the sediment of iron is iron oxide hydroxide. In other words, after the LGM, the climate shifted from the cold, dry climate to a warm, humid. That will intensify chemical weathering, and that will cause accumulation of iron oxide hydroxide in the sediments. As I mentioned earlier, iron oxide hydroxides are strong sorbents for arsenic, and that will cause accumulation of arsenic in the aquifer matrix. Then with the with the barrier of the sediments, the aquifer turned into reducing conditions. Under the reducing conditions, the iron oxide hydroxide will be reduced, and the adsorbed arsenic will be released in the shallow aquifers. That is the explanation of the occurrence and the genesis of high arsenic groundwaters in this region. And in addition to this, we found out biodegradable natural organic matter plays a critical role in this process. I will discuss this later on. So this is a summary of the sedimentological control on arsenic enrichment in aquifer systems. The chemical the climatic change before and after RGM causes the change in chemical weathering and also the sedimentation. The warmer and humid climate promoted the strong weathering of the rocks and the minerals, and the iron oxide hydroxide occurred widely in the aquifer systems, and the rapid deposition after RGM accumulates huge sediments in the aquifer systems, and with a co-barrier of arsenic and iron oxide hydroxide and organic matter. And that creates favorable geological environmental conditions for arsenic enrichment. We have fine sandy aquifers, we have strong reducing conditions, we have arsenic-loaded iron oxide hydroxide, and we have abundant bioavailable organic matter. All these create favorable conditions for the occurrence of high arsenic groundwaters in this region. Then I will show you very quickly some of the results of our work on the understanding of the groundwater flow systems, how the flow systems control the occurrence of geogenic contaminated on regional scale. We have done a lot of work in this area also, in this direction. We found out the recharge areas of regional groundwater systems are generally speaking are oxidizing conditions, and most geogenic contaminants do not accumulate in these recharge regions, but flow through the regions where the redox conditions tend into weakly oxidizing or reducing conditions. Then the geogenic contaminants partially mobilized, and especially fluoride will be enriched in this area. Then downstream to the discharge regions, where usually we have strongly reducing conditions, we have sluggish flow of groundwater, and the geogenic contaminants mostly occur in this area in groundwaters. So spatially, groundwater flow systems control the spatial distribution of geogenic contaminants. And in addition to that, actually the redox conditions and the microbial communities are also controlled by the flow systems, generally speaking. For instance, for the recharge regions, the microbes preferentially reduce nitrate, and the iron minerals remain stable and absorb most arsenic. Then to the flow through area rooms, the sulfate serves as electron acceptors. Arsenic-bearing iron minerals reduction will take place, and that will release arsenic, as I mentioned earlier. And even downstream, further downstream to the discharge areas, methane the genesis or the production of methane due to the biogeochemical processes under reducing conditions will promote arsenic reduction and further intensifies arsenic release into the aquifer phase. And also we made a lot of effort to understand the variation of microbial communities along the flow path. And it's very interesting to see, although they overlap with each other and sometimes they mix with each other, but generally speaking, there is a relation pattern of the occurrence or the or the distribution of microbial communities in a different part of the groundwater flow systems. For instance, in the downstream discharge regions, we have a elevated abundance of methane cycling and arsenic detoxification genes in the groundwater systems. Thirdly, I would like to talk about how the metrics of the aquifer system, which is a very important index of the geological control on the aquifer systems, how the metrics evolution affect the occurrence of geogenic contaminated groundwaters. One aspect of this part of work is the land subsidence induced matrix evolution. As you may know, North China Plan is the major I will show you. Okay, this area. This is the North China Plan. On this plot, that is the North China Plan. North China Plan is the most serious, the areas with the most serious land subsidence programs in the world. And here I show you the evolution of the land subsidence in the past more than 60 years. It begins with small areas. Then the land subsidence areas expand with the intensification, the expansion of the intensity of the groundwater pumping. So to the end, more than 10 years ago, these more than 41,000 square kilometers are affected by land subsidence in this area due to the long-term over exploitation of groundwater in this area. And here I show you the land cumulative land subsidence in this area. The most serious part is the so-called Changzhou city, where we have a very densely populated city, and you can see on the right the low, continuous lowering of the groundwater table in this area. And in this area, North China Plan, we have the so-called 4 aquifers. We classify them from top to bottom, aquifer 1, 2, 3, and 4, to the depths of about 800 meters deep from the surface. And we did have done some work in this area on the high fluoride and iodine groundwaters. It was amazing for us to find out after our work. High fluoride groundwaters and high iodine groundwaters occurs even at the depths of 400 meters, 600 meters down 400 and 600 meters deep from the surface, which can't be explained by our conventional or traditional theory of the genesis of the geogenic contaminated groundwaters. And we prepared a very interesting plot, which is shown on the left lower part of this diagram. There you can see there are circles which represent groundwater samples. The bigger the circle, the higher the concentration of iodine in groundwater. You can see the highest iodine concentrations in the groundwater occurs clustered, I would say, around the most clustered around the Changzhou city, where we have the most serious programs of land subsidence. What's the story behind this? What's the genetic relationship between these two things? Then I proposed a hypothesis. Maybe after during the compaction process, fluoride and iodine were released from the compacted clay, the seals or the clays, and they are released during the compaction process to the neighboring aquifers. We drilled boreholes and we collected sediments collected in situ sediments, sediment samples from the field. Then we did compaction experiments back home, and we plotted the concentration of fluoride and iodine on this the compacted sediments, and we plotted the concentrations of these the pore solutions from the compacted clays and silts. You can see down to the depths of 400, 300, the pore solutions has quite high concentrations of fluoride and iodine. And the fluoride concentration can be up to 11 milligram per liter, which is quite high. And the total iodine from the pore solutions can be up to 830 microgram per liter. And we calculated using the different proxies, different mixing equations, which the results, I would say most reliable results is from the calculation of the strontium isotopes. You can see the average mixing ratio of the compacted solution in the groundwaters is up to 70%, which explains why at a depth of 600 meters deep, where we still have high iodine groundwater and high fluoride groundwaters. And based on all our work in the past 30 years, we classified geogenic contaminated groundwaters into 4 genetic types, which includes evaporation concentration, which refers to the effects of evaporative enrichment of the geogenic contaminants. Then the leaching enrichment, which usually can be observed in the recharge regions, and downstream to the flow-through regions. For example, you can see high fluoride groundwaters. And the barrier dissolution is the most predominant process for the occurrence of geogenic contaminated groundwaters. Then we have, as I mentioned, compaction release processes, which is responsible for the occurrence of geogenic contaminated groundwaters at different depths, depending on the history and the intensity of compaction in the region you study. Then I would like to share you with some of the recent advances on hydrobiogeochemistry of geogenic contaminated groundwaters. We after many years' work, we have summarized. We can summarize the major processes that control hydrobiogeochemical behavior of geogenic contaminants in groundwater systems. That is mineral interface reactions, which is quite easy for geochemists to understand. That is a very classic part of geochemical studies. I will not talk about this tonight, but we also we found natural organic matter biodegradation, microbial metabolism are very important processes controlling the mobilization and the transport of geogenic contaminants in groundwater systems. And on top of all this, the coupled redox reactions between carbon, nitrogen, sulfur, iron, and the geogenic contaminants form a so-called, we call it reaction network, that will jointly control the behavior or the mobilization and enrichment of geogenic contaminants in groundwater systems. Due to time limit, I will talk about 3 case studies. The first one is about ammonia. The second one is about iodine. The third one is about arsenic. I will go very quickly through this. The first story is about the natural organic matter degradation controlling ammonia enrichment. We studied this program in the Central Yangtze River basins. High ammonia groundwaters were first found by our group in this region, and we confirmed they are geogenic. In other words, they are not directly associated with anthropogenic inputs, because high ammonia groundwater can be anthropogenic, but in this region, at a certain depth, the high ammonia groundwater is geogenic. In this area we have abundant lacustrine groundwater lacustrine sediments. As I mentioned, after LGM, the sedimentation was very fast, and also the lakes develop very quickly. And in this area, we have a huge thickness of lacustrine or lake sediments in aquifer systems, and the lake sediments contains abundant dissolved organic matter in the aquifer systems. We were lucky in recent years. In recent years, we were lucky to have this new equipment, that is FT-ICR-MS. With this powerful equipment, we can characterize dissolved organic matters in the sediments and also in the water. And due to the time limit, I will directly give the results of our work. There is a difference in DOM compositions for high ammonium groundwater and low ammonium groundwater. For the high ammonia groundwaters, we have the DOM have high DOMs, have high molecular weight. There are more CHON compounds. The aromaticity is higher, and we have high LOSC value, and we have lignins as a major as the organic compounds, very important organic compounds. On the basis of all this characterization, we will try to explain why there is more ammonia in this groundwater. That is, under anaerobic conditions, CHON compounds with high molecular weight and high LOSC values thermodynamically favor microbial utilization and thus produce a higher concentration of ammonia in the groundwater. And we discerned two distinct degradation stages for both DOM and SOM. And we found SOM was more resistant to aging as compared to DOM. And SOM contributed actually more to ammonium enrichment in groundwater than DOM. In other words, for groundwater studies, we cannot omit the contributions of the matrix, the soil or the sediment. The composition is also very important for the behavior of contaminants in groundwater systems. And we also discerned dominant ammonification pathways, which shifts with ammonium concentrations. We have two pathways. One is elimination of simple mono nitrogen with one nitrogen atom substrate at lower ammonia. Then the urease-driven breakdown of complex multiple nitrogen substrates at high ammonia, which is the main process for the enrichment of ammonia in aquifers. The second story is about iodine. Iodine is a life in sense elements. With lower intake of iodine, you have problems of goiter. but with excessive intake of iodine, you will also have problems of thyroid disease. So that is a worldwide problem. I always say this is underestimated or even overlooked health problems for human race. On the left, I show you the most recent work of my group on the prediction of the health risk of iodine groundwater in China. Before my group, there is a very little work on higher than groundwaters in China. And for this case study, I selected again an area from the North China Plain that is in the Changzhou city, as I mentioned earlier. And we carried out groundwater metagenome studies, and we focused on the so-called carbon iron iodine complex in the aquifer systems. We found out there are three major processes responsible for the iodine enrichment in the groundwater. The first one is competitive adsorption by carbonate in weakly alkaline under weakly alkaline conditions. The second is abiotic reduction of iodate by biogenic iron or sulfite with iron reducing or sulfate reducing bacteria. The third one is the most important. That is a biotic reduction of iodate by disseminatory iodate reducing bacteria. That is IDR bacteria. And we were lucky to have isolated a strain from the aquifer systems in this area. That is Lexus hydrophinis, NCP, that is North China Plain, line 73. We found that strain it has a IDR A genes, which is significantly upregulated during iodate reduction, and that strain is facultatively anaerobic. And in the center of the plot, you can see it's rod-shaped bacteria, and the gene is IDRA genes. And to prove the function of the IDR gene, the IDR gene cluster sequences were cloned and expressed, and the culture results demonstrated the expressed IDRA with iodate reducing capacity. The results clearly suggest disseminatory iodate reduction occurs in high iodine groundwater systems. And compared with the empty vector strains, we did batch experiments. Compared with the empty vector strains, the iodate reduction ability of the two strains containing IDRA vector was significantly increased after the experiment, as shown in the left part, the yellow bars. You can see with one star and 2 star in the bars, the results of the with the strain with the effect of a strain, the iodate, most of the iodate was reduced to iodide and transport enriched in aqueous phase. And it is a very important discovery actually. The IDRA was detected according to our work, not just in North China Plain, but in other areas of the high iodine regions of our study. And also we found at the Hanford and the Rifle sites, which are world famous radionuclide sites. They have serious problems of radioactive iodine contamination. Even in that site, IDRA exists, and even in marine oxygen minimum zones, we found the IDRA was detected. So in other words, IDRA may play a very important role in the global hydrobiogeochemical cycle of iodine. The third small story is about the biogeochemical reaction network controlling arsenic mobilization. As I mentioned, many of the redox sensitive elements, nitrogen, sulfur, iron, we jointly work together with DOM, with organic carbon in the groundwater system to control the behavior of the geogenic contaminants. Here I give you some results of the high arsenic groundwaters. We found the complex biogeochemical reaction networks in high arsenic groundwater systems controls the coupling of multiple biogeochemical processes, and it is promoted by the participation of multifunctional genes. In other words, geomicrobial microbes, and also the driving of and also there is a effect of energetics of the microorganisms. For instance, the ammonia oxidation can be coupled with iron oxide reduction with the involvement of that is the so-called FIMOX process. In wastewater treatment, FIMOX was found by a Princeton professor. But in groundwater systems, we found FIMOX FIMOX microbes may be ubiquitous in high arsenic groundwaters. For instance, in Hotel Basin in Inner Mongolia in China. Another example comes from anaerobic oxidation of methane coupled with iron oxide hydroxide reduction that will cause enrichment of arsenic in the groundwater systems. The third example is the sulfur cycling processes coupled also with iron oxide hydroxide reduction that will also affect arsenic enrichment. And also for this process, not just the reduction process, but the speciation change. For instance, the occurrence or the genesis of arsenate generated during bacterial sulfate reduction will enhance arsenic solubility and mobility in the aqueous phase. So on top of all these discussions, all these discoveries, we believed the coupled biogeochemical reaction networks, the diverse functional microorganisms, and the complex natural organic matter compositions all affect the desorption-adsorption process, the microbial-mediated redox coupling, mineral dissolution precipitation, and organic mineral complexation processes. All these processes will work together to affect the mobilization and the transformation of geogenic contaminants in groundwater. And one point I will want to emphasize is that there are lots of dark matter of microorganisms in groundwater system to be discovered. I believe in the near future there will be great discoveries in this area. Then I would like to spend several minutes to very briefly summarize the results of our work on health risk predictions of geogenic contaminated groundwaters. For the study of geogenic contaminants, we always do like this. We have hydrogeochemical survey. We make toxicology studies. We try to understand genesis. We try to find out the cost-effective ways to remove contaminants. All these efforts, and also one dream of our work is to try to predict the spatial distribution of geogenic contaminated groundwaters. As a I was trained and grew up as a hydrogeochemist, hydrogeologist. For hydrogeologists, we always use numerical tools or analytical solutions for the prediction of the solute transport or water flow in the subsurface. And again, traditionally we rely on point sampling. We use process based numerical simulation, and we can use geostatistical interpolation, and we can also use statistical modeling. But in the past 10 years, the occurrence of machine learning and artificial intelligence greatly expand our vision of doing this kind of things. Again, I would like first to point out the limitations of traditional geostatistical methods. The geostatistical methods strongly rely on observation monitoring data. And for this geostatistical modeling, we depend on assumed spatial structure. We depend on semi-variance functions. The data should be spatially homogeneous, smooth, and linear. But the real-world hydrogeochemical observation monitoring data hardly meet these requirements. Then what can we do? And for the traditional process modeling, for instance, numerical modeling or analytical solutions, they are computation intensive and inflexible. There is a negative correlation between scale and resolution. For instance, the resolution of a national scale numerical model of the groundwater flow was 10 kilometers for a country like China and Canada. We can do that greater the numerical modeling for such a huge country, but the net scale is much higher than the spatial variability scale of geocontaminated groundwaters. In other words, we can't use this kind of work. Use this kind of model for the prediction of the occurrence of geogenic contaminated groundwaters on a national scale, especially for big countries or big regions, big areas of study. Traditionally, many efforts have been made by colleagues across the world to predict the occurrence of high fluoride, high arsenic in the world or in different countries. On the right upper part, you see the paper published in 2013 by a group from Europe and China. Actually, the results are highly suspicious according to our work, but they use geostatistical methods at that time. And there are other work. Due to the time limit, I won't mention the details. And realizing the limitation of the traditional methods, we tried to use machine learning methods for the prediction of global distribution of high arsenic groundwater. We call this model GGA net, GANet. On the left upper part, that is the first map of machine learning prediction of high arsenic groundwater distribution in the world. Of course, it's a probability map of with high arsenic higher than 10 microgram per liter. By the way, I will tell you the limit, the upper limit MCL for drinking water arsenic is 10 microgram per liter. And we in this model, in establishing this model, we deliberately didn't input data of four areas with known data of high arsenic groundwaters. Then after we generated the prediction map, we plotted on the map the known sampling results of these areas. You can see on the right, these are the Heta Basin, the Songnam Plain in China, and the other two regions in India. The red dots are the long measured results of high arsenic groundwaters. You can see the predicted high-risk regions match very well with these long high arsenic groundwaters. In other words, the model is quite robust. I would say quite reliable for this kind of prediction work. And turning back to the upper left right, upper left plot, you can see we predicted there's some high risk regions in other parts of the world where we have almost no data about the high arsenic groundwaters, which is I hope this map will cause attention of the local people to measure the groundwater to avoid the health programs related to high arsenic groundwaters in these regions, and hopefully the measurement results can improve and improve the results of this prediction, and we can further improve the prediction work. A lot of important results of this kind of machine learning work is that we found out the effects of environment factors interaction on arsenic enrichment, which can be which can get got from using the traditional numerical modeling. It was amazing for us to find out that the meteorological and the surface parameters have very high, I would say, importance, relative importance for the prediction. For instance, precipitation, actual evapotranspiration, and soil drain are the leading three parameters for this model. So, in other words, we need to better understand the impact of the surface processes on the occurrence of geogenic contaminated groundwaters, which have been seldom studied up till now. So I believe this is also a kind of new information provided by this kind of machine learning approach. Finally, I would like to give several perspectives for the future work. First of all, I would say we need to integrate knowledge, physics, data-driven models. I believe great opportunities lie in data-driven knowledge discovery. That is, extraction of useful information from data and founding of new models, new structures, and new relationships, which can be revealed by traditional methods. But we need to integrate the traditional physics-driven and data-driven models and the knowledge-driven models, and we combine them with our data-driven models. By doing this, we make substantial advances in research and in the understanding of the biogeochemical processes that control the geogenic contaminants in groundwater systems. Secondly, I would like to say we, as geologists or hydrogeologists or geochemists, we need to engage in ecosystems restorations. Why? Because there is a strong interaction between groundwater and the aquatic ecosystems. My group in the past 10 years have done a lot of work also on the discharge or the of geogenic nitrogen and phosphorus groundwaters in the aquatic surface systems in the lakes. As a matter of fact, worldwide, this kind of geogenic ammonia and phosphate groundwaters has a great impact on the eutrophication of the wetlands, and we need to get involved. We need to make greater impact and contributions to the ecosystem restoration in the future. Thirdly, I would say we need global collaboration. This kind of study cannot be done by a single country or a single group. We need network of networks. We need to carry out international collaborations to fight against this kind of programs. For instance, due to the time limit today, I don't have time to talk about the impact of irrigation on the release of geogenic arsenic. As I mentioned, the geogenic arsenic groundwater can be geogenic, but they can be released due to the anthropogenic activities. Irrigation is one of the most important way of releasing geogenic contaminants into surface water in the shallow groundwaters. So we need a worldwide effort to ensure the food and the water security, to mitigate the negative impact of this kind of geogenic contaminants released due to irrigation processes. Then I would say we need to move from the traditional medical geology perspective to I call it health geoscience perspective, because we need not just to study endemic disease due to the long-term intake of waterborne arsenic, fluoride, all these kind of hazardous substances. We need holistic and convergent research to understand the interactions between geo-environment and human health, and to make things bigger, to one health. This kind of holistic approach and convergent approach is urgently needed to push forward this kind of work. In China, I led a group of strategic scientists. We prepared, we worked together. We published. It's in Chinese. It's a so-called National Science Think Bank publication, the newest publication of this series, published in this year in Chinese. It's in Health Geoscience. At the preface of this book, I wrote like this: Health geoscience is an emerging interdisciplinary subject integrating earth science, environment science, life science, public health, and preventive medicine together to better understand the interaction of Earth's spheres on the health effect, to better understand the migration and transformation of health-related geological materials, and also to better understand the geodynamic processes and the eco-health linkages. And we also need to give stronger scientific support for ecological security and public health. And with this, I would like to thank the funding agencies in the past 30 years to my group. And thank you very much for your attention.
I think the perspectives were also very enlightening, because I think we see convergence of thinking in terms of what we can do, for instance, with machine learning, rather than just having data-driven, also trying to incorporate knowledge base or knowledge information into machine learning models. But we have time for some questions. I'm turning to the room. Are there also people online?
There's no questions.
No questions online? Okay. You have a question? You have to come and bring.
Okay, very interesting presentation. Thank you. With respect to the machine learning model that you presented, where you highlighted that those soil characteristics were important, like soil drainage and whatnot, and precipitation, for predicting the geogenic contaminants, to what extent was bedrock geology important? Because you need host rocks.
Yeah, of course. As I mentioned, a good question. As I mentioned, this is the so-called extracted information from the machine learning models. They are not physics based, so we need to return back to the real world to understand how this means. What does this mean to us? So far as I understand, although the machine learning model indicates the precipitation, soil drain are so important, evapotranspiration, the three parameters are so important. So far as I understand, They are important because of the evaporative enrichment process. Because as I mentioned, in the arid and semi-arid regions, evaporative enrichment process can cause the enrichment of fluoride, arsenic, even iodine, according to our field observations and also worldwide investigations. So maybe we can give this kind of interpretation of the machine learning models that will make sense. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any questions? Maybe I have a question or kind of a suggestion. I mean, if you look at surface waters, subsurface waters, there is a general tendency globally of conditions becoming more reducing. You mentioned, for instance, the iodate reducing microorganisms that are also found in the oxygen minimum zones of the oceans. And we have good data now showing that these zones are actually also expanding, primarily through eutrophication drivers. I wonder if that would not be kind of a nice joint project to actually quantify the global expansion of reducing conditions in subsurface environments, so in aquifer systems, but also in surface waters, and also not just on land, but also in the oceans, because I think that's a trend that is very much related to obviously geogenic element mobilization or contaminant mobilization, but also affects the nutrient cycles, the phosphorus cycle, the nitrogen cycle, etc. And I think that's maybe been kind of overlooked as a general driver for a lot of the water quality changes we're seeing globally. So I just wanted to throw that out as a potential idea.
Yeah, that's a really good suggestion idea. Actually, we just published. I will share you with you the recent publication in National Science Review about the IDRA in the oxygen minimum zones in the ocean, which is because of the expanding of the OMZS oxygen minimum zones. We found IDRA just resides in that zone, not above it. So that will cause iodide reduction to iodide, and the interface of ocean and the atmosphere, that iodide will transform to iodine molecules, which will become volatile to the and will transported inland. That will cause worldwide problems. So that's one good example of what you mentioned. Then second example is we also noticed the prevailing I would say the expanding range of reducing conditions in the subsurface and also in lakes will cause genesis of methane. That is a potent greenhouse gas. It's also a worldwide challenge. Tianhao, Miss Tianhao, we jointly supervised. Her work showed the occurrence of methane in groundwater and the discharge during the discharge process to the lakes. The methane will be released to the atmosphere. In other words, aquatic ecosystems under reducing conditions can be a very important contributor to greenhouse gases. So I fully agree. We really need international joint effort to better understand this. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? If not, let's thank Professor Wang again.
Thank you.
Good.